Is it filming?
Alright, so we filmed this a while ago back in Bali, but so much has changed since that moment, so we thought we'd refilm this intro. Essentially, this podcast is going to be all about our teenage years, how we got to the position we are in, how we're living like a very happy, content, fulfilled life so far, and how we want to help you guys to do the same.
The same.
Do the same. It's basically going to be like a complete guide to your teenage years and help you live that happy, fulfilled lifestyle. But for context, you need to know the position we're in and why we like the position we're in. Obviously, it's not for everyone, but why we like it and how you can get there yourself. So for me, I started as a YouTuber, went through the exams, did all of that, got to university, realised I hated it, dropped out in my first year, 6 months in, joined a tech startup, realised the tech startup provided me with a lot of value to start my own stuff. So we now co-founded in Bali a company called Astra, which is an AI mindset development tool. I'm also running a game company with my girlfriend, which is on like conversation and bringing you closer together in that relationship. And I run a marketing agency on the side called Digital Renaissance Limited while still working for that startup I was working at. Joe, take it away. What's your story?
Hello, I'm Joe, and essentially I went to school, hated school, never really was able to conform. Yeah, luckily I figured it out before Jake that I absolutely hated it. I never went to university, started my own e-commerce company, started coaching, mindset coaching, as Jake knows, which is what helped me create Astra with Jake, that beautiful man sitting there.
Stop it, you!
And then, so I started coaching, coached a couple people, had some really good clients, used what I had to create Astra. Now I run a marketing agency doing street interviews for brands, and I'm just a nice guy.
Just a nice guy. Yeah, debatable, but here he is, nice guy. No, you are, to be fair. I feel like we're very... Basically, the moral of the story is we both build ourselves up to the point where we know what we're working on is going to have a long-term impact. It's going to enact the societal and world changes that we'd like to see and help us on that journey, but also gives us like financial independence, location independence. We can work from anywhere in the world, doing whatever we want, and it's a great time. And we want to help as many people get to that as possible because we now know it is possible. Yeah, that's like a high-level summary. We want to know how we got there. That's the rest of this podcast. I hope you enjoy. Hope you find it helpful. Let's get into it. So I want to talk about how we got from, for me, when I was 13 years old, I was a very skinny, very introverted kid. I didn't talk to anyone. My social group was about 5 people, never branched out, never felt the need. I was sat at home gaming, no ambition, no motivation, no like determination to do anything other than enjoy the moment and game. And that was basically who I am. I don't know if, Joe, you're similar. Like, what is the person you were at 13?
No motivation for anything other than just kind of doing the usual, going through the usual motions, just going to school, not really thinking about anything outside of going to school, going to parties, just numbing my brain, various different substances, and then pretty similar.
Yeah, and then it's interesting actually because, like, throughout, say, the last 5-6 years, from that point of like, I'm currently 19, from my 13-year-old self, I've never really felt happy to grow up and like take on life, right? It always feels like, oh, these are the best years, I'm gonna get into a job and then I'm just gonna like lose the rest of my life and it's gonna be really depressing. And I feel like that's the way a lot of people think right now. But recently, I'd say maybe last 15 years, so many shifts in technology, in society, like all of these different things, like social media, for example, that means a life that you actually want to live is so attainable. And I think that's what we're here to sort of uncover and help you guys figure out how you actually do that and all of the little things throughout that I've got us here.
Yeah.
So, there's gonna be a lot of like milestones in this journey, in this conversation. I think we're just gonna go through the teenage years, starting off with 13-year-old Jake and Joe, and where we got. So, 13-year-old Joe.
13-year-old Joe?
13-year-old Joe.
13-year-old Joe.
Yeah. What are you doing? Like, talk me through it, and then talk me through like what you remember thinking about yourself. Like, what were your internal beliefs? What were what was your paradigm on yourself?
So, I was always like a pretty creative kind of kid.
Yeah.
Kind of naturally, like I really like making stuff. I like making films. That was my thing back in the day. I had a YouTube channel pretty early on.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, I think the difference with me and Jake, right, and I commend Jake for this, that when I started a YouTube channel, and as everybody knows, when you do anything a little bit different in school or in some sort of like formal education, you get taken the piss out of, right? There's no
there's no getting about it.
Yeah, it's just like
it's just absolutely violated.
Yeah, there's no other way of saying it. You just get ripped apart, right? Which is it's a good thing and a bad thing, right? It's a good thing in the sense that it does kind of build your character a little bit. It does allow you to ask yourself the harder questions, like, do I actually really want to be doing this? Like, do I really want to be sitting in my room making videos when everybody's taking the piss out of me in school?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it knocks your confidence down and basically tells you that being who you are isn't the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So me as a 13-year-old kid, I was in that position. I was making some videos, getting a little bit of traction on YouTube, but I was just getting ripped apart at school. And
what sort of videos?
Anything really. I just found enjoyment in just setting up a camera, having the idea, setting up a camera. Like, I make films, I make videos of me talking, I'd like vlog.
Yeah.
Like this is, we're talking 10 years ago, like.
That's crazy.
8 to 10 years ago. But yeah, so there was that I had kind of going, and I enjoyed it. But at the same time, I had no real motivation, like no real motivation other than to just go to school, maybe make a few films, get ripped apart, and then feel shit about myself, right? So that's the 13-year-old me.
Yeah.
Was that from your phone?
It can't be my phone. That was loud. It might have been. Oh, it's because Danny's on a shared party. Right. Yeah. Anyway.
Forget about that.
Yeah. It's just Danny been done.
Technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties. But no. Yeah. There's something I want to unpack there. It's the element of when you're going through your teenage years, there is that idea that if you kind of break the norm, break the definition of who you're meant to be as a teenage kid, you get grilled, you get absolutely ripped apart. And I feel like there's so many people who have so many like niche interests, but they feel like they have to conform to like, the typical teenage life. But where I found that the true breakthroughs come from, both in terms of like your mentality, but also your like progress in your career, is just accepting the bollocks that you're gonna get from it. Just ignoring it all and doing it for you. Like, the people who define normal childhood years have normal adult years and normal like futures. So you've got to define yourself outside of the norm if you don't want a normal life. Some of you, great, you might want a normal life. I know so many people who are really content with like office jobs, working in engineering. I actually wanted to go into engineering at one point, working finance, working whatever it may be. I just realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. I feel like there were seeds of that throughout my childhood years, and by just sort of sticking with the content and sticking with whatever I was doing outside of the norm and just backing myself, knowing that I don't really care what anyone else thinks, led me to like the position I am today. But yeah, it is extremely difficult. I remember, so my first YouTube channel, it was called XJDC, X Air X. So that was our Clash of Clans clan name. And I remember just like making loads of, I had like the typical rendered like intro. I'll show it I might run it up on the screen. But yeah, I remember just making like gaming videos. I made like bottle trick shot videos. I made one called Freestyle Football where it was like Shrek music. And it was me literally scoring the shittest goals of my life and just like overly editing it. I think at one point I had 3 clips, 3 shots on goal with a guy in the goal, and I made that into a 2-minute video because I was just rewinding, recutting, re-editing. And then I remember that video got around my school, and yeah, everyone would violate you for it, but like, it's character building, like you said, and just embracing that. It was fun because I guess as well, on that note, I mentioned that I was a really like introverted kid and didn't really have a big social circle. That was the first time I felt kind of noticed, which is weird. I don't know whether that's sort of influenced my desire for content. Like, I don't feel particularly bothered about being noticed. I feel like I had something to prove though when I was a kid, and I wanted to sort of stand out. And yeah, so that's sort of like the initial stages of realizing I wanted something different, I guess. You
should listen, if you're watching, you should listen to this guy here, because the difference between what I said and what he said is that he stuck with it, right? And he just kept going. He had the consistency to just carry through it. And even when it was like, it was not the normal thing to do, and it was outside of that kind of box that you get put in school and in life, really. Yeah. Like throughout your whole life. He had the power to break out of it and the consistency to stick with it. I never had the consistency to stick with it because I just wanted to fit in. And it got to the point where I just wanted to fit in. And I've realised it so much later. Not too late, and it's never too late really, right? But not too late. I realised it a couple of years ago. Why the fuck why would I care about what anybody else thinks or anybody else says or anybody else does? It's literally, it doesn't matter in the sense that what they think isn't matter, right? It's not matter. It's like just rest in their own brain. You can't see it. You can't see what they say. You can't. They just say it, and then nothing happens, right?
Yeah, it's a valid
You have a
point.
choice. You either take it in and you internalize it and you let it affect you, or they just say it and you're like, yeah, fair enough, and then you just carry on doing what you were doing. And that's the way to do it, and that's what he did.
Yeah, I mean, just so that with my first YouTube channel, it was more just like fun videos, so like nothing crazy. The sort of motivation to that died when I like did my GCSEs, because I was focusing on my A-levels, my GCSEs, all of the work set, and like the grind set. We'll get onto that in a minute, but there's an interesting one there where it's like we mentioned before, it's easier looking back now to say don't care. It's much harder in the moment to care. But what I've realised looking back on it and looking at all of the people that at the time I had admiration for because they were super social, they like fit in completely, but they were also doing their own thing, it's just the people who have like the confidence to be like, what I'm doing is what I'm doing. Anyone that disagrees, fine.
Yeah.
Just like isolate your mindset and your bubble.
Bravery. Right?
Yeah, it takes an element of confidence, and I feel like that confidence is respected even subconsciously among teenagers or people in your like school. I think just breaking that mold and just being like, yeah, I back myself.
Yep.
And people respect that. I think the shit and the violations come when you posted something, someone makes a comment on it, and you get really embarrassed. You kind of hurl up, and you're like, "Ah, this is it, and this is the end." Like, and then you stop because then people violate you for it. If you just firm it and then make progress and just keep backing yourself, people actually validate and understand that you're not fair play.
Yeah.
You do you.
It's kind of like you're only violated if you let yourself be violated, right? It's just like
100%.
if they post a comment, you can just carry on and, like you say, kind of back yourself. Just have the bravery, the confidence, just carry on.
Facts.
That's the way to do it.
Okay, so 13, that's out of the way. Come 14, I like to look back on these years and identify key pivotal moments that have changed certain characteristics I have. So before this point, I'd never really chatted to girls, I'd never really been social, never done any of that, I mentioned that. Then there was one occasion where I went on this ski trip. So I went on a ski trip.
Oh, where's this going?
Yeah, I was 14, I went on a ski trip. I was actually chatting to a girl at the time, but then that sort of fizzled away. And I went on this ski trip having not really experienced like a group or like anyone outside of my 5 people, my little tribe, my little crew. And I was forced to interact with people outside of that. And suddenly I was like, shit, this is actually quite fun. Like, I enjoy being social. And I just ran with it. Like, I just tried to make friends. I was still an introverted, really awkward, stupid kid. But that moment changed like the rest of my life. From that point, we formed a really solid group, a mixed group, which I think was really valuable, of like 8 to 10 people. And then after that ski trip, we'd continue to like meet up as a group. And for the first time, I felt like I had another tribe outside of my group. And then 4 or 5 months later, I ended up going out with one of the girls that was on that ski trip. And I was with her for 4 years. That was I define that as quite a catalytic moment for me. And
you went on a ski trip, right?
Yeah, literally that one decision to not stay at home and just like game and be like, actually, I kind of want to go skiing. I kind of want to push my comfort zone. I'm also terrified of heights. So the whole trip, I was absolutely bricking it. But yeah, it's like, that is probably the social catalyst for me and like the point at which I started to build confidence. I'll get more into how that triggered the rest in a bit, but what would you say is your like first defining moment as to one of the characteristics you now have in your childhood years? What was like the first catalyst for one of your characteristics?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and that is interesting as well. That one decision had that kind of compound effect that changed the whole course of your life, right?
Yeah.
Changed the person who you are.
That's
Crazy.
the one.
But I mean, I can't necessarily pinpoint one decision, one thing I did, but I can remember understanding that if you crack some jokes in class, you know, if you kind of make other people laugh, then it helps you in unfathomable ways to build relationships, and build friendships. But yeah, so I think from about probably 10 plus, when I started to understand a bit more about stuff.
Yeah.
I just started cracking jokes, and in class kind of was trying to be funny as much as I could, and I still do it now.
Yeah, he's a joker. He's a joker.
But yeah, so like that decision, I can remember almost consciously thinking about it, being like, okay, this is good. Like people vibe with this when you crack some jokes, you make them laugh, and then you can build these relationships, and that's how I kind of just found my way into lots of different circles throughout school. So it's like for me, it was making that kind of conscious decision to kind of push myself out there and just
So
go
develop
for
a
it.
sense of humour as well.
Yeah, just like develop a sense of humour. Just kind of go for, say whatever you want to say and see how it goes, right?
Yeah, I back it. And like humour is a very disarming tool. Like it breaks so many barriers and like, say you meet someone for the first time, you crack a joke, they laugh. Suddenly you're like, that's a little bond.
Yep.
As opposed to going out to them and be like, hey, being really awkward about it and you don't really know where it's going. So I think, yeah, fair play. I think humour is a really valuable asset, and I can definitely see that in your character today. Yeah, the amount of joke. Some of them maybe not so appropriate, but most of the time pretty appropriate.
I think I'll get cancelled.
Yeah, some of these conversations in this video, oh my god, especially last night. But yeah, anyway, so that was like the first, I guess, pivotal moments for both of us. Yours was like realising that a sense of humour was quite a disarming act and a good tool for building your social like circles and developing relationships. So I just want to like come back now to the point of that ski trip and then that journey. After that ski trip was when I started to branch out into these social circles. This is like a point of contention for a lot of people in their childhood years. But I had my first house party. I had my first drink. I did start drinking. So at 14, in the summer, we went to a party. That was my first drink. And then from that point, we had lots and lots of parties. It was a period of sort of experimentation. There was that element of, I've now got some freedom, let me run with it. And that's 2017. I define that as probably the most pivotal year of my life in the sense that it was my first time for almost everything. So I had a girlfriend, first party, first drink, first kiss, first axe, and yeah, I don't know who's watching this.
Is that what you called it after?
Yeah.
It was a great act.
It was a great act. Well, yeah, so at the time, I was 14 in that relationship. We didn't actually sleep together until I was 15 the next year, but we were sort of getting to know each other and just
oh my god, the bugs
where
on my
things
leg.
went. Oh, that is crazy.
Sorry to interrupt. What do
No
I do?
worries.
Just flick it off.
Yeah, just pick it up.
There you go.
Right.
See that.
And also, there's on the topic of drugs. Like, oh God, Mum, Dad, I'm sorry. Yeah, so
not showing my parents.
yeah, it was so at the age of 14, we had all that freedom, and I did exhibit some like element of I want to try some new things. So I smoked weed for the first time when I was 14 with a few friends. It's funny because looking back on it now, one of my friend's brothers actually put a filter in the joint so that we didn't actually get high. He was being like kind of like a protective brother, which I'll probably do the same for my brother. He's probably watching this now and be like, I'm not asking you for anything. Yeah? So yeah, that was funny, and it was that period of experimentation. I think a lot of kids sort of need to go through. They need to get out early, sort of. Obviously, don't go seshing every weekend and getting absolutely hammered because that's not going to be productive.
It's great advice.
Yeah.
Just go outside and just do every drug you can.
No, but I think there's an element that we kind of drill into people that everything's bad, everything's negative. You do anything that's slightly bad for you and it screws up your life. I don't think that's the case. I think everything's good in moderation. You should try being social, like for example, parties and stuff a lot of people shy away from, but actually it's a great tool to build up your like social arsenal and like really learn how to interact with people. So I'd say push yourself to put yourself in those situations. Go to the parties, go to all of these different events with people. Maybe that's like the local fun fair or whatever it is, and just experiment a little bit. And moderation's key. Don't go too hard.
Everything in moderation, including moderation.
Exactly. Quick quote. And I feel like so long as you're not binging on anything, you're good. That's my take. I don't know what your take is.
I completely agree, right? It's pushing the boat out and trying new shit is the only way to learn.
Did you have like a similar experience?
Literally the exact same. Like when you said you drank first at 14 and you smoked first at 14. I used to just go to a field with my three mates and we just buy like a bottle of like Glen's vodka, you know, like the shittest vodka, because we found a shop in our hometown where we could get served, and we were like 4 for 8. And anyway, yeah, we found this vodka and we would just go to the fields and we just drink it out, like straight out of the cap. So like we just do that when we were 14, smoke when we were 14. It's the exact same thing, and I think, like you say, you're describing pretty much everybody's childhood, right?
Yeah.
But not being afraid to kind of experiment and try new shit and go to these parties and go to these events and try different things and experiment is the way to go.
Yeah, I agree.
There's complete agreement there, right?
Yeah. There's a point I want to bring up on that though, is there's a lot of times that I found with like other people, when they were in their experimental phase, they'd have a habit of slipping into using those like house parties, using drinking, using smoking as a means to ignore their problems. I mean, both in childhood years and adult years, right? I think if you, in any form, start to exhibit a similar thought process where you're trying things and doing things to cover up issues or like escape from the work or the homework or like life or the thought of, oh, I'm going to be in a job in the future, let me do everything now. As soon as that thought process starts to come in, take a step back, reassess, like, do you need to be in those situations? The answer is probably no. Work on yourself a little bit and then go back. I don't know if that makes sense. We're thinking 14-year-old kids watching this stuff.
I think it does make sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it literally makes complete sense.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to say on that matter. It's like
Yeah.
it's dependency, right? And it happens slowly, but before you know it, you're in that kind of cycle. You can slip into the cycle easily of just trying to escape shit by drinking or by smoking or by doing this or by doing that, or fall into extremely bad habits that can dictate the rest of your life. Right?
Yeah, agreed. And okay, so we're on that point of now we've experimented. Now we've kind of broken down a bit of the like pivotal moments for us and characteristics. Mm-hmm. So mine was like very social. That was when I kind of broke into my social state. But throughout all of these points, up until say the age of 15, we didn't have anything or any obligations. I wouldn't say. I think for me, the first sort of sign of like my work ethic and me working for the sake of my future rather than just like school and then enjoy life was my GCSEs. That was like the big thing for me. That's what I built my channel on, my success with my GCSEs. And it's a funny story, like I've told her this at the time and I've told a lot of people, but I genuinely think my butterfly moment for my work ethic, for my drive, I was in my ex's bedroom. All right, calm down. I was in my ex's bedroom at 14, by the way.
Oh, they don't make any jokes.
Yeah, 14, and we were just like watching TV, and then she's like, oh, I need to do some, she was like, I need to do some revision. And I was like, revision? What? This is such a foreign concept to me. I didn't think you had to work for your exams or do anything like that. And she comes out with these huge like folders full of like cue cards with papers and like all of this work. And I'm like, where have you got this from? Like, why are you doing this? And she kind of runs it through me.
Runs it? She probably did run it.
Yeah. No, she kind of like talks me through it all, and I'm like, shit, that makes a lot of sense. And that was the like pivotal moment for me where it instilled my almost like awareness that I need to put in the work and like the rationale behind it. The work you put in now, don't think of it as in I need to work to get these exams. Think of it more as I need to work to prove something to myself, to prove my drive, and know that by building my work ethic now, it translates into virtually anything.
Yeah.
Everyone always used to ask me, why the hell are you revising so early? Why are you working hard for your exams? It's only GCSEs, you can scrape away with a 4. No, like I was there to absolutely obliterate it, do the best that I possibly could, because I knew that what I do now in these teenage years would dictate the rest of my life, in the sense that if I was lazy now, I'd be lazy in the future. If I was hardworking now, I'd be hardworking in the future. And that's why I just absolutely sent it. Came away with, I had the best GCSEs in the country, all 9s across the board, and I actually got 100% in like 4 of the exams.
Oh, yeah. Keep telling me.
But no, they know this on the channel. But what I'm saying is, it is that like drive to build up your work ethic as opposed to achieve the goals. The achievements mean nothing. Like they haven't got me anywhere today. Like, they mean bollocks, but it's the work ethic that's translated into everything else. And that was my first glimpse of work ethic and the need to put the work in. I'd love to know yours, Joe.
So I'm actually going to come at it from a different perspective. But what you said there is straight facts with like how the achievements don't actually mean anything. They mean fuck all. And even like us here in this mansion villa in
means
Clarke,
nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Like the money, right? It doesn't mean anything. It's what you actually gain. Where the actual value is the development of your character, right, and who you are as a person, and like you say, your work ethic, your confidence, your beliefs, your abilities, just who you are, right? That's where the real value is, and that's what you got to focus on, rather than the cash or the results or etc. Anything outside of yourself. But so from oh god, I'm so tired. I forgot what. Wait. So the different perspective, right? So like so Jake found that drive and that ethic, that work ethic for his GCSEs. I was, which is admirable, as he said, best results in England,
whatever.
Oh, bollocks.
whatever he goes on about. Yeah, mine came later, and I can remember, interestingly.
Sorry about the little break there. We had to swap the camera and the lighting was going down, so we've set up in this new location.
You might get a decent sunset view.
Fingers crossed. Joe, you were talking about... What are you talking about?
I was talking about how, I remember exactly, it was about the work ethic, right?
Yeah.
So, I was saying how Jake found his early, and I remember doing, like, having my GCSEs coming up, people telling me to revise, and me just not doing it, basically. It was only after formal education for me, it took me being out of the box, or the norm of education, to push myself and to see what was possible and activate that work ethic within me.
Yeah.
And the first thing was when I started just experimenting with like different online businesses. Like when I started doing drop shipping, I started like selling different things. I just learned like supply, demand, learned those basics, and then I was like, wow, I've been told by my results for the last 5-6 years that I didn't really have any potential, but I was actually like, oh, maybe I do have some potential, and that unlocked the work ethic. So it's not binary, so it's not like from my experience, like it's great for Jake, that worked fucking for you. For me, it worked out a bit different, and it could be extremely different for the person watching this behind the camera as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great...
Catch my drift?
I catch your drift, bro. I got you. No, but let me just roll up my sleeves.
Insecure. Anything this guy says. Not a very good role model.
No, I'm joking. Let me just sort this out.
Just get your hair right.
Yeah. That is a very valid point. There are, I feel like, a few different types of people. Everything's a scalar. It's not like a defined, everybody abides by this similar path. For me, I found I could instill my work ethic through my GCSEs and through my A-levels, and I think it worked really well for me, and it worked really well for everyone else that I've taught to. But like, don't define your success by your grades. That isn't a point I really want to cover. A lot of people, especially at the start of school, the current system, from a very early age, defines your worth as a person, your potential by, I mean, like literally exams in London, the 11 plus, by the age of 11, your success is defined.
Yeah.
And it's such an odd concept. Because
sorry to interrupt. If you're not hitting those right grades, then the pressure is put on you straight away when you're 11 or
and you devalue yourself.
Yeah,
and
exactly,
you sort of so like I was very privileged, in a very privileged position where I was decently academic from an early age. So I kind of had that propellant of I am doing well now. I need to make sure I'm doing well for the rest of it, and I need to stay on top. Whereas a lot of people maybe have sort of been knocked down at the start and don't really find their academic potential, but academic potential means nothing.
Like work ethic is what you're describing, right? They don't really find that drive it within them until a different point in their life.
Yeah, and also the education system, it's great if you want to go into like fundamental roles, so like healthcare, if you want to go into finance, if you want to go into all of these jobs that require like technical expertise. Again, limited though, so like you might be terrible at English, terrible at like all of the languages, terrible at religious studies, but great in terms of the mathematical side, and then because of that you still define yourself as less valuable than other people.
Yep.
But you can use the academics to go into so many things, but there's not just the academics, there's also like life experience and life. How would you define it? As like not academic intelligence, life intelligence.
Street smarts.
It's kind of like street smarts, but more like there's also like creativity. I feel like the education system now doesn't help to promote an element of creativity. Yeah, like it's terrible.
Yeah.
And there's so many creative ways, especially we mentioned this at the start, but in today's society, you can do so many creative things and make so much money doing
whatever
it.
you want.
Yeah, like I guess for context, the startup I work for now, we had like so many iterations of products. It was actually only a month ago where we found a new product. It took us maybe a week to build V1, but just from that, having that mindset of creativity and pulling loads of like new tools together, we're now generating like almost 100k a month, and that's like growth within 1 month. That just by being creative, seeing opportunities, looking at like where we are today, what's available to us, and seeing how we can bring things together. So for you, it might have been dropshipping. For me, it was also actually dropshipping. But for example, social media marketing agencies, it's a foreign concept to anyone over the age of 30, but people in this villa are making a lot of money with social media marketing agencies. Or even like there's someone in that villa who's selling planners, like just planners for like journaling for work, and making ridiculous amounts of money with it. Like that element of creativity, I think, is a better determinant of your, say, financial success than your academic potential. Academic potential is amazing for getting you into like the to getting into like jobs and getting into society's success. But if you want to break out of the norm and define success on your own terms, creativity is the biggest determinant. So do things that promote creativity, I'd say.
Do things that, I think it's just simple with creativity, right? It's just like, do the shit that you enjoy.
Yeah.
It's like, if you enjoy making YouTube videos, you make YouTube videos.
Yeah.
I enjoy making my videos, I enjoy coaching people, so that's just what I do.
Exactly.
And then you just carry on doing that, and you become so detached from the outcome, you're just enjoying doing what you're doing. And then nothing else matters. You don't care about the results, you don't care about the money. You don't care about what other people say, you just care about doing the thing that you actually enjoy doing.
Yeah, agreed. And we're going on a bit of a tangent here, so I'm going to have a final point and then bring it back. But the final point is as well, a lot of people, especially during education, define success in terms of monetary value. Like how much they're making per year, what is their life like, how many cars they have, how many houses they have. As you get older and as you get more life experience, I feel like we're in a privileged position where, because we've broken out of the education system, we've seen life at face value and know that actually wealth isn't about the monetary value, it's about the level of connection with your family, with your friends, your relationships, and almost like your mindset as opposed to your position. There's the external value, and like where people look from the outside, okay, you've got this much money, you've got this many cars, that's how other people define success. Staying in this villa, for example. But in like actual internal success is completely down to your mental space, your mindset, and how content you are with the person you are now and the person you are becoming.
And that is unbelievably important, right? And that's why I do what I do. Like, I help change people's lives through their mindset, through the way they think about things, help flick that kind of paradigm shift in their brain, which allows them to step out of the box, which allows them to step out of that box that you were talking about, and see and take control of their own life, right? And live your life on your own terms. Live your life instead of living other people's lives. And you hit the nail on the head with all of the stuff. Like the actual true success is the internal stuff, not the external stuff, despite how it may seem like from other people just judging you by your external, or by your cars, by the villas you're staying in, by the locations you're in, by the Jordan tops you're wearing, by the shirts you're wearing.
This cost me £3, by the way.
It actually doesn't matter. It's the same point that we made out there. The true value is the stuff that's inside.
Yeah, completely agree. And we've gone off as a tangent. I just want to have a quick get sturdy break to bring us back.
Sturdy break?
Alright, people. Yeah, so reeling it back in. So we've talked sports. We've touched bases on now 14-year-old us, 15-year-old us, a few of the key moments that have determined confidence factors, social factors, the element of humour. I want to go into now 16-year-old self, and we're sort of now seeing like the shape of who we are today. From 16, I feel like 16 to 19 were the most powerful years for developing or like finding out who I am. I know that sounds cliche as fuck, but it's important, and there is an element of figuring out sort of your strengths, your like what you want to achieve, and all of this. Literally just who you are and like what the kind of person you want to be. Okay, I'm hitting the tangent a little bit now, but something I found over the whole of my teenage years is a good like mental practice is looking at everyone else, looking at traits you like, traits you dislike, and then actively trying to change your own traits based on that. So for example, I was terrible at conversation, couldn't make conversation with anyone.
Hard to believe, right?
Crazy. So I'd look at other people who were like, seemed so fluent at it, seemed so able to just interact with anyone. And I was like, how do I do that? So I started picking up books, I started looking and analysing videos on them. It's sad, but there was one comment that one of the girls made when I was in year 9. I was sat next to this girl in maths, I was chatting to her, and she just turns to me and goes, "You don't know how to have a conversation, do you?" And I was like, that sent me under. That night I went home and I was like, I literally typed into YouTube, how do I make conversation? It's so sad, but like you just got to do it. You've got to put yourself in the position of, what am I now? What traits do I want to see in myself? How do I get there? It might be searching that on YouTube. It might be picking up personal development books. It might be whatever it is. Yeah, you got any thoughts on that?
It's funny you should say that, because I can literally remember Googling stuff like that, like how to talk to girls even. Like I can remember Googling that back in the day. Like you just go home, because you see like, you'd be at school and you'd see somebody
doing something well, like you say,
Yeah.
just having great conversations, or everybody likes them, right? They're like seen as like the most popular guy, popular girl, and you're like, okay, so how do I become that? So you just go home, like you say, just go, how to have a conversation, or how to talk to a girl, or just how to do like the most basic stuff. But picking up those traits, like seeing what those people are doing, and seeing how it's working for them, and then how you can model that in your own life and your own personality, like you say, it's a game changer, really.
It is. It's insane. Okay, nice. We've covered the tangent. We're coming back in now. I think the next big thing for me was after I got my exam results, I created a new YouTube channel, and that is the channel you now see today. I focused really, it was actually you talk Butterfly Effects. It was a conversation I had with 3 people in the gym. We went to the gym and we were like, we don't want to be in the normal working environment. We don't want to be in the normal working world. Let's all start a YouTube channel and just see where it goes. And we all did. We all sat down. We all started a YouTube channel. Unfortunately, the other 2 have stopped now. They didn't find their sort of niche. I realized actually, you've got to offer value to engage an audience. Unless you're offering like comedy or like incredibly great personality or incredibly great like charisma.
Like us.
Yeah, at the time maybe not, but maybe now. You have to offer value. My first YouTube videos were so cringe, but I offered value, and nothing happened for the first 3 months. I posted my first video in like November, and then January, I remember the feeling, my first ever GCSE video just started to take off. Within like 30 days, it was on 50,000 views, and then it just started to go from there, and it was like, wow, I can actually make this work. And then I was pumping out loads of academic content, really offering as much value as humanly possible. That value really resonated with everyone. And then COVID hit. This was 2020, and this kind of sent me a little bit, because all of my content was academic and everyone's exams were cancelled. The internships I had that I felt like were going to be really valuable for my career, all of them got like removed. Yeah, none of them could happen, because I was meant to be flying out to ITER, which is a nuclear fusion place in France, for like a mechanical engineering internship, and I was like,
full of surprises.
yeah, I was very much defining my success based on those experiences and those things I was doing. Everything was taken away, like just like that, and it really forced me to reassess my perspective. Before I get into that, I'd love to know how lockdown changed your mindset, or like how was your life different just before lockdown to just after lockdown, or like as in like, how did lockdown affect you, basically?
So it's a similar thing on the surface, like all of the stuff, which sounds pretty obvious now, but like all the stuff that I had planned to do or I was doing, just kind of gone down the shitter, right? So like all your plans, all your ideas, everything gone. I'd planned to go traveling with my mates, and this was the point where I was kind of lost, getting into being lost in my life anyway, just figuring out, like you said, who I am, what type of person I want to become, and what I want to do, and what I want to focus all my energy and my time and my attention on. But yeah, so I had these plans to go traveling, I had these plans to go into different things. I had a few, like literally same, I had a few internships lined up and like apprenticeships even lined up. But it just all went to shit, right? And what that forced me to do, which is really interesting, is kind of just go internally, just kind of just see what I actually want to do, right? See instead of listening to what other people said about getting an internship, getting an apprenticeship, doing this because this is what you normally do. I just kind of looked within and figured, I just want to kind of do some creative stuff. I want to make some videos. I want to post my thoughts. And then similar to you, I just started posting, and nothing happened for ages. Just started literally set up my phone, just started filming myself talking about the thoughts I had about like personal development, about like how to achieve things in your life, how to change your mindset.
But yeah, that's different to the videos you sent the girls, right?
What?
Could you put it outside for what you said? I might have to cut that one.
Post those. We'll brush over that. Yeah. So similar to him, that it kind of forced me to like look within, and I had the same kind of like fuck it mentality. Like, all right, let's just start posting and see what happens. It's the exact same thing. Posted for a while, nothing really happened, and then you just start getting videos that hit 50k, and then 100k, and then 150k, and then people were just coming to me for like the mindset advice just based off what I spoke about, and that's when I started offering coaching. So it's crazy. It kind of determined like your original question: how did lockdown kind of affect your mind? And I suppose it determined the rest of my life. Yeah,
agreed. And I think that's a very similar thing for me, where Lockdown was actually a little bit different for me because I'd, up until that point, defined all of my success and my trajectory by academics. Right? I mentioned this before. And then as soon as all of that was taken away, and as soon as we weren't in the same routine, the same cycle of go to school, grind out, maybe go gym, then go home, do it all again the next day, we were kind of forced to take control of our own time. And that for me made me realize that actually I don't want to go into a normal route. I don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life. I, for the first time, was able to spend so much time with my family. I was able to I started vlogging and just making videos for the sake of the entertainment and sort of trying to offer people an insight into my life in lockdown because everyone seemed a bit depressed and I just wanted to give them something fun to do and to work on themselves. So my lockdown sort of shifted my paradigm from wanting to go down the corporate route and get the best job imaginable to just working on my inner monologue, myself from within. So that was things like meditation, working out, and just building my character so that I was a likable person and just really enjoyed being who I was. That was my shift over lockdown, and I feel like I'm very grateful now that we had that lockdown because so many people aren't going to have that, and that's I guess why we're here today, to sort of offer that paradigm shift without you needing those circumstances.
Without you needing to shut down the entire world.
Yeah, just
let go of
shut the world.
Thing that you plan to do. Just watch this podcast and you'll be fine.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, interesting. It is. Yeah. It is really interesting because, like you say, I think it did change. I wouldn't be over exaggerating in saying that it changed the trajectory, the path of everybody's life. I mean, at least everybody in this villa, and most of the people I've spoken to, or pretty much all the people I've spoken to, it changed the way they live their life, right? So just how can you change the way you live your life without having to shut down the world?
Yeah. And
that's what we're here to do.
yeah. And on that, there's a book that I recommend, and I want to talk about the story of that book. It's How to Influence People. And so, building off that conversation earlier, where I didn't know how to talk to anyone, apparently couldn't hold a conversation, and then ended up looking up on my phone how to have a conversation.
How to have a conversation.
When lockdown hit and I realised I wanted to be working on myself, I was currently working at Sainsbury's. I had a part-time job, and I was working really early morning shifts. I was starting 5 a.m, working till 9 a.m. when the shop was shut. I was going around listening to music, etc. But I really wanted to get into the headspace of developing and learning new things so that I could come out of lockdown a completely different person. I wanted
Jake V2.
Yeah, Jake V2, or everyone to sort of see the newer me, and hopefully people would like that person more. I don't know whether that came from a place of internal or an insecurity, but it just came. So I was listening in those 6 a.m. shifts to How to Influence People, the audiobook, and that book completely changed the way I view relationships, not only with my family, but also friends, networking, work, interactions. And from that point onwards, I made it my mission to get to know as many people as possible, really strive to have genuine curiosity for what they do. Because I feel a lot of people, especially when they're younger, they kind of focus in on themselves. They're very intrinsic, they don't really care about anyone else. But as soon as you have that mental shift, I'd recommend just reading the book, but as soon as you have that shift of actually other people are so interesting, and life value and life experience is defined, or your memories and everything in the past, how you see your life at the end of it, on your deathbed. It's about those memories with other people, it's about those shared experiences and the ability to kind of reminisce with others of everything that you did in the past. You need to be social, you need to start conversations, you need to be genuinely interested in other people to have that tight friendship, have those tight shared experiences. So that was a very big paradigm shift for me as well.
Yeah, and it's the same thing for me when I read that book. And I actually only read it relatively recently, a year and a half ago, 2 years.
Oh wow.
But it did change everything, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the idea of what you put out comes back to you, right? And if you put out if you focus all your energy on other people, in a good way, in a healthy way.
Not stalker vibes. Just track down there and go, oh my god, I'm so interested where you live. Let me just
through their window. Why is the police here? If you do that, then it comes back to you, right? And there's a chapter in the book, and like we said, just read it because it will change your life. But chapter in the book, how to make people kind of like you, and it's all focused around getting them talking about what they like, what they love. And if you just keep asking them questions about that,
Yeah.
They do, to put it in a nutshell. But I think it also, that book gives you a good sense of how to deal with situations. I think one of the most important things, and I've spoke about this in some of my videos, is that it really cemented into my brain that if say if somebody's pissing you off, right? If somebody's making you angry or somebody's making you upset or whatever, somebody's affecting you in some negative way, if you actually put yourself in their situation, right? And you'd had all their experiences, you'd had all their thoughts, you'd had all basically their life, you would be acting the exact same.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So it's not like it's their fault. Like, this is just the way they are, and even if they're pissing you off, this is just how they are. So you kind of see it really kind of get out of your own perspective, and you see it from their perspective. You can realise that majority of people don't actually mean to have bad intentions. It just kind of comes across that way to you. So that's another important thing, dealing with those situations, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, and actually, I completely forgot that was a chapter in that book, because that's like a big philosophy of mine, is basically never start arguments. Arguments never end positively, right? If you win, they feel shit. If they win, you feel shit, and nothing's ever resolved. Actively avoid arguments in any form. Be agreeable. Obviously have your own opinions, but
and
never...
Don't take too much shit.
Yeah, don't take too much shit, but yeah, put yourself in their shoes, really understand their position, and rather than starting an argument, convince yourself almost that their opinion is right, and then work towards a middle ground where everybody's happy, because nothing good ever comes from an argument. And that's like a really key philosophy. I mean, a lot of these points you'll be covered in the book if you read the book. Yeah, basically just read the book.
We're basically just doing an advertisement now.
Yeah, Dale Carnegie.
Give us our commission.
Yeah, no. So coming out of that and sort of realising that mental shift, the next year was pretty transformative for me. Coming out of lockdown, it was actually in, I want to say around November time. I started to get like channel sponsors, started to make money from YouTube. For me at the time, it was incredible money. Obviously, now it's less so, but say like 10k a year, or from like one video deal was like £600. To me, that was like my entire month's salary at Sainsbury's or whatever it was. So that was mind-blowing. But one company reached out called Uniwise for a sponsorship on my channel.
Is this going to be a sponsorship now?
No, but I had a manager at the time. I was like, 15, 16, so I didn't really know what I was doing. I had a manager. The guy comes on, he's like, mate, he calls me after, he's like, mate, fire your manager, he is shite. He's not doing anything you should do. Let me be your manager for like a day to show you what it's like. Let me coach you, let me mentor you. I got on so well with this guy, and then he became my mentor for like the next year. He is probably like one of the most transformative people in my life, but if I hadn't read How to Influence and Influence People, I wouldn't have even engaged with him. I wouldn't have taken that call. I wouldn't have sparked conversation. Yeah, I would have looked up how to sort. Can we swap again?
We like to switch it up. We like to keep things fresh. You know?
Keep it
need to get
interesting.
complacent.
Yeah, so that character, Oliver Rutherford. If you watch this, I say it in almost every video where I'm talking about like where I am today. I love you. You were genuinely one of the biggest catalysts in my life to date. Other than my dad, biggest inspiration. Like hands down, you've changed everything for me. But from that point, he took me on and he kind of showed me how to negotiate with people. He got me to read a book it was a negotiations book, to sort of build up my confidence with dealing with clients for my YouTube channel. And then one day he invited me, looking back on it, it's mad, because I thought he thought I was older than I was because I was a little bit more mature. He invited me down to his place in London. I was technically a minor at the time, and my dad was throwing a fit, not throwing a fit, but my dad was very concerned that he could have been just like a groomer or something. I knew that he wasn't, because I've seen, he runs in similar circles to what I was running in at the time. I went down to his place in London, and when I say his place was insane, it was insane. And that sort of set my mind up for, because he's not in a typical route. He ran Uniwise, he started his own company, he'd done all of these cool things. And for me, I was like, shit, I can actually make a life outside of typical working roles. And I was like, wow, that's the point at which I started to pursue everything else. He introduced me to a girl called Alia. 3 months later, she called me up and was like, hey, I'm working for this startup. They're looking for a creator in residence. How would you like to interview? I hopped on a call with the founder. He gave me the job on the spot, and that is the company I work for today. I interned with them over the summer, and there's more to get into later down the line, but yeah, from that network effect, from reading that book, everything changed, and I'm now in the position I am because of that book and because of that massive network effect, which is it's awesome to look back on. Damn. All right, that was probably my that was a big catalyst, and the first time I'd really seen the power in network effects and just putting yourself out there, meeting cool people. There's so many times after that we'll probably get into where I've met someone on a specific time, specific event, and it's changed the course of my life and massively amplified like where I'm heading. Joe, I'd love to know if you've got a similar story, and yeah, shed some light on.
I do indeed.
Networking.
Thanks for the setup.
No worries, mate.
Yeah, so it's literally extremely, well, it's not extremely similar to yours, but it's in a similar sense. So as I mentioned before, I was like always liked making videos, I always liked making content, just making stuff. And then I stopped kind of doing any content stuff throughout from when I was probably about 13 to 16, 17.
Okay.
And just literally to fit in, as we spoke about. And I followed loads of people, like I followed the people that I aspired to kind of create content like, the people that were inspiring. One of them being Mike Thurston. And if you follow me for long enough, you probably know that I ended up doing a video with Mike Thurston in like 2018. So he just like put out on his Instagram, like, is there any 16 to 18 year olds for film, like, that want to be in a YouTube video? And I was like, yeah, I want to be in a YouTube video. Thinking, he's never gonna, he's probably got thousands of people messaging. He was like, yeah, let's do it. So I ended up filming a YouTube video of Mike. And when I did that, that was like,
I can imagine, yeah.
He's not at the stage that he's at, he wasn't at the stage that he's at now. Like now, Dubai and,
yeah, everything.
Got it all. But
So it doesn't mean anything though, but
yeah, I know. But back then he was living in Kingston, so it was near where I was, and he had like this penthouse apartment. And even then, like filming that video with him, just seeing how dedicated, how disciplined he was with not only with his training but with his videos, with his content, and how inspiring that was for me. And then going to his apartment and seeing this apartment and how he lived. And then on top of that, the video blowing up and getting 1.6 mil just for like a couple of hours of filming was like, it just changed everything. There's no other way of saying it other than it changed every single thing about my life and what I believed about what I wanted to do and what was possible.
Yeah, how did it change because I feel like that point, it airs on the element of you had a limiting belief before. Mm-hmm. How would you say that shifted, and then what were the immediate actions that you took, and how did that catalyze your journey? Because obviously it's changed everything.
Yeah, so to boil it down to the limiting belief was that I didn't believe it was possible.
Yeah.
Like I always had a decent belief in myself, so I was always backing myself, as we spoke about earlier, but it was more the fact that I didn't think the outside world, it was possible to manipulate the outside world like that, to kind of just make a few videos and then live this life, right? And so that's the belief. And then what was the other part?
What were the immediate actions you took after sort of having that paradigm shift to building the content base you have today?
Mm-hmm. So after that, it was just like I dialed in everything. Like I started going like really dialing in my training, and that had like a kind of a compound effect on what I was doing. Because then when I'd be training like a lot, I'd just be filming it. Yeah. Like I'd post a few videos here and there, nothing too serious. Made a few YouTube videos. Sorry, somebody outside.
Just falling in the pool.
But yeah, I wasn't too consistent with it. But what it did do is it just provided me with that belief, like you said, like the belief, the empowering belief that it is possible if you want to make it happen. And that's something I've carried through with me throughout my entire life to us sitting here now.
Oh, is you just stacked it? Fuck. Oh no.
There's one of those moments where you can't laugh.
Yeah, I can't laugh. I think we just carry on as normal.
How do we carry on after that?
Is she okay?
Did she hit her head? I didn't see it.
No, just her leg.
Oh, okay.
Okay, carry on.
Anyway, what were we talking about?
We were talking about the immediate next steps you took.
Yeah. So the immediate next steps were just dialing everything in and getting, like, really feeling the motivation and the discipline that I needed to achieve what I want to achieve, and I've carried that through, like I said, to this point now.
That's an interesting point. There is times where, for example, Mike Thurston was a big one for you. For me, a big one was going down to my Ollie's apartment in London, seeing the view and seeing how incredible the life was. There's those sparks of inspiration that really change your paradigm, but that paradigm shift, or for me at least, I find to be pretty temporary. And you kind of conform over time to society's pressures again. You meet these people that have broken the norm, they inspire you for that period of time, but life sort of drills back into you, and they're like, and your paradigm slowly shifts back into, I just want to go to the 9 to 5, I want to go get a normal job.
Yeah.
For me, I had the internship over summer. I mentioned I got the internship with the company I work for now because of Ollie and because of that incredible event. I had the internship over summer, but life was kind of drilling back into me the idea that I had to go to university to be successful. So I did. I dropped the internship and went to university. I studied mechanical engineering at Bath. In my head, actually, I had the intention of studying whilst doing the internship. I also worked for another part-time company at the start, and I thought I could do that all whilst balancing YouTube as well. Little did I know, that was so far from the truth. Uni life just screws you over so much when it comes to the work ethic.
In what way?
I feel like, again, you conform to the norm, like the normal definition of what your childhood years and what your uni years should be like. So you're going out, you're partying all the time, you're just doing the lectures enough to go out and party. But I was in a good position where I sort of conformed to that, but then I also kept everything going on the side, but it came at the cost of my health. Like, for example, Sundays, well, my typical work week was uni lectures, maybe Tuesday night I'd go out, I'd wake up at like 3 a.m, go to my lecture at 9 a.m, Thursday night I'd go out, do the same thing. I was in go to bed at 3 a.m, wake up at 9 a.m. Then Friday I'd, in the evenings, again go out. Saturday morning I'd work for the first startup, and the second in the evening. Sunday I'd spend the whole day editing, go to sleep at like 5 a.m, wake up for my 9 a.m. lecture, and do that every day or every week for like 3 to 6 months, and it ruined my health. I was ill so often, and I lost all of my fitness gains. Everything sort of piled down from the high that it had been in the summer after coming out of lockdown, after reading all these books, working on my mentality, working on my person, to that. It was a shock to the system, and I needed that re-trigger of the life that we now know to be possible. So I went to London. I asked if I could stay at Ollie's place. He said yes. He took me to this crypto billionaires party in Blackfriars. We had panoramic views of the whole of the city of London, right in the heart. And I was like, wow. I stayed up with this guy called Azar for like 4 hours until 4 a.m, just talking through my mindset. Why do I want to go to uni? Why don't I? And then that sort of set the seed. I think at that point I realized I didn't really want to be at university. I didn't think it was for me. I remember my exam periods. The next set of exams was in January. I went out before my last exam. I got absolutely trashed, and then did my exam. It was 9 a.m. and I went out until 3 a.m. Anyway, I remember. Yeah, don't take that advice, especially if you're going down the uni route. Yeah, it got to the point where, from that additional check-in, I realised that uni wasn't for me. I went down to London again. I called a few mentors, and I remember I was sat in an instrumentation lecture thinking, this is depressing as fuck. I genuinely can't think of any place I would want to be less than here right now. I wasn't paying any attention to the lecturer at all. He had the most monotone voice. Because remember, uni lecturers aren't even taught to teach, they're taught to research, so they're terrible teachers at times anyway. And I was checking my emails, thinking, or looking at other things I could do. I called up my mentors, I called up the internship I now had to put on pause, and I basically just asked him, do you have any work going? He was like, yeah, come on full time, be head of growth. And then that's why I adopted my full-time position. I dropped out of university that day and haven't really looked back since. But the point I was mentioning is a lot of times you get those sparks of inspiration, but unless you're actively seeking the re-triggers of it, you will conform back into society's defined path, go down the typical route. Again, for most people that might be fine, but if you, in that moment or in that spark, realise that life wasn't for you, it's not for you, and you should be seeking something else. Yeah, I don't know about you, what have you found, what have been the re-triggers for you that have made you realise that this life is possible and you should continue to pursue the path you're on?
There's definitely, what you said there, and it's almost like if you picture on a graph, it's like the ups and the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
Right? You have the lows, and then something, when you get to that bottom of the low, something happens which shifts it, which is the re-trigger, and you head straight back up. But I think the biggest one for me, the biggest one out of pretty much everything was last summer. When I was driving this millionaire's Ferrari around.
I remember you having that.
Yeah, and like we said, cars, money, it's all meaningless, but behind the wheel of a Ferrari and you're 19, and I've always loved cars.
Yeah, I love cars.
Just driving it completely changed everything. Like, this guy was sitting next to me, the owner, he's founded multi-hundreds of millions of pounds worth of companies. You probably heard of them, and he sold them to companies that you've definitely heard of. But yeah, I somehow ended up having lunch with this guy, having a barbecue with this guy, and we just ended up talking about cars. I love cars, he loves cars, he had loads of cars. And then he was like, well, what, do you want to drive one? I was like, oh, nah, mate, I'll just probably head off. Won't bother. But no, so I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, I want to drive one. So I he was like, pick one then. Picked his Ferrari and we went out. And then, but that, sitting next to him and him saying to me, when I was driving this Ferrari and going, ragging it around, him saying to me, it doesn't actually mean anything, right? It's all meaningless. The real stuff, and very similar to what we were saying out there earlier, is in the character, in that sort of sense of, I suppose, personal development, right? In getting the best out of yourself. But that triggered me to really, really kind of dial in and think, it's another kind of moment where I thought it's all possible, just externally, just driving this. Him being next to me, knowing that it doesn't actually matter, and the internal stuff is the stuff that matters. Also, driving this Ferrari and being like, holy shit, this guy's not, he's not much different to me. He's just a guy who has made a few decisions and it's led him up to this point, and I can do the same.
There's levels to that. There's levels to that I want to dive into now, and it just brings together everything we've talked about so far. There is that constant check-in. The constant check-in to reframe your paradigm, add another concrete layer to that paradigm. Make sure you actually believe that life is possible.
Yep.
But that paradigm trigger came about from, networking. And you probably met this guy because you were genuinely interested. Having read How to Influence and Influence People, you knew the value in relationships and interpersonal connection. So Joe probably experienced a level of interest in that person. That sparked the conversation, that led to lunch, that inevitably led to you driving that Ferrari and having that paradigm shift. I think amidst all of this, if there's one key takeaway, for me at least, is you should be, especially if you don't know what you want to do, you should be doing everything in your power to continue to stir the pot of opportunity, or just do everything you can to put yourself in front of as many people as you can, interact with as many different industries, as many different people, because as soon as you start stirring the pot, that's when the opportunities pop out, and that's where you sort of heat everything up and start sparking out little tangential occurrences, little spontaneous or serendipitous moments that, inevitably give you opportunity. Because they spark those little butterfly effect moments. If I hadn't started my YouTube channel, I would have never met Oliver Rutherford, I would have never got the job at the startup, I would have never dropped out of university, and I would be depressed as fuck.
If I hadn't have met Mike Thurston, filmed a video of Mike Thurston, I wouldn't have seen it's all possible. If I hadn't met him, I wouldn't have met loads of different other people. I wouldn't be here right now if I hadn't have just taken that opportunity, just put myself out there, right? And stir up that pot of opportunity as my good friend there.
Good friend, Joe Broom.
as he very well put it. And then you go. Yeah. I think another thing, just to add, he said there, the key takeaway is always be stirring up that pot of opportunity, but realise that, give me a minute. It's actually this hard of a thing to think about that I can't just go straight off the dome. Realise that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter too much, and don't put too much pressure on yourself to always be do what Jake was doing, always be working all the time, doing this, doing that, doing this, doing that. And be able to take a step back, enjoy things, right? See things for what they are, enjoy the moment that you're in, and just don't put too much pressure on yourself. If I could just add to that, by all means, stir up the fucking pot of opportunity as much as you can, read all the books, put yourself out there as much as you can, speak to as many people as you can, be genuinely interested in what they have to say, but at the same time, realise that, you're fine anyway, you're content, just be content with who you are and enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
I think that's a
kind of
incredible
adds,
point. And for me, I'm the same. Obviously, there's times where you feel like you should be working, there's a lot of guilt there, there's a lot of, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. At times, you just want to take a step back, you just want to enjoy some moments with your friends, you want to go on a holiday, you want to go out to Bali for a month, you want to do all of these wicked things, because again, I mentioned this at the start, when you're lying on your deathbed and you're looking back, you're not going to be thinking, why didn't I work harder? You're going to be looking back and reminiscing on all of the shared experiences and shared memories that you created with these amazing people, the time you spent with your friends, the time you spent with...
I'll reminisce on this.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to be reminiscing on this. And there's an interesting one there as well. A lot of people end up like falling into the cycle of, oh, I should be having a great balance. I think only have a great balance if you love what you're doing. I think until you love what you're doing, you should be working to find out what you love and find out what you should be pursuing. So like now, for example, I don't work anywhere near as hard as I did over my GCSEs, for example. I don't put in the same level of drive because now I found what I love, so I don't have to be sort of trying to tackle everything, trying to pull out everything from everywhere. I now know what I love doing. I know what I find the value in shared experiences and relationships, so I have the balance to spend time with friends, go out to Bali, have time, like family time, film podcasts, whilst doing all of the work and still progressing and building on that vision. Think of it like if you're directing your energy across an entire surface area, you've got to put a lot of effort in to get any progress in all of those areas. Whereas if you've got a specific vertical, you can bring all of that progress together, and half the time is going to result in 10x, 15x, 100x the progress.
Yep. He put it is in what he did there a minute ago, is you can see it, right? So he said, like, I was just kind of pulling, like going everywhere.
Yeah.
Basically just kind of like scattered attention, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, real drive, but scattered attention. And if you can, like you say, hone that attention into what you actually love doing, what actually brings you happiness and makes life worth living, right? Then the results, like you said, 10x, 15x, that's when you start seeing real progress, when you can realize that, oh shit, there's all these opportunities, right? There's always going to be opportunities. I could always make this amount of money doing that. I could always go here and do this. But if you just hone in on what you actually enjoy and focus on that, that's when the true kind of fulfillment comes, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I also think there's an element there of, I still don't know exactly if the path I'm on currently is the path I want to be doing. And like, even Joe messaged me the other day, we had a conversation where neither of us really knew if this is what we wanted to be doing, but we know we enjoy the process, we know we enjoy doing this. So I think as you get older, it's almost like, think of it like your lens of focus, right? When you're young, you should have a massively wide lens. You should be looking at all of the opportunities imaginable. Literally cover every ground, tap into as much as humanly possible.
Try everything.
Yeah, try everything. Then you sort of get a feel for what you do and don't like. You can start to exclude certain things and bring your lens of focus in like closer. I'm now at a point where my lens of focus is quite narrow, but there's still a lot of opportunities in there where I'm like not sure if I should be doing this, should be doing that, and it can lead to a lot of uncertainty and like thought and questions as to what you want to do. But think of it like trying to narrow down those options. Know that what you're doing now, you do enjoy, you're making incredible progress with, but keep an eye out for the other opportunities if you do want to try some other things. I guess, what would you say to that?
The key is the enjoyment, right? Like, it's like, even though both of us are in that similar situation, or have been in that similar situation where we don't know exactly where we want to go, we both enjoy the kind of, to put it, it's actually fucking weird, but we both enjoy the kind of uncertainty of figuring it out. We enjoy the challenge, we enjoy like I suppose the uncertainty is the best way to say it, but, and that's an interesting point, like you're never going to be 100% certain. I mean, I'm sure even the people we were talking about, Oliver, the Ferrari, even Mike probably, just they don't know exactly what they're doing, right? They have an idea, but there's always uncertainty no matter what you do. But the key is to just enjoy it and hone your focus in, but enjoy it.
Yeah, and there's an element on that. In fact, there's a few things I want to cover in relation to that. There is the element of, a lot of people see their life as a continuous compounding journey. By that I mean they go into a career, and they need to continue on that career for the rest of their life. I don't think that's the way in the modern world. There's actually a quote by the end of 2030, 50% of all the workforce is going to be remote independent workers. And what that means is you don't have to define yourself by one career or one path. You can dabble in lots of different things. So right now I might be working as a no-code developer at a startup, running an SMMA and doing YouTube. In 5 years, I might be a musician. I might be traveling the world. I might be DJing in Ibiza.
You might be a prostitute.
Might be a prostitute. 10 years, I might be a investment banker, whatever it may be. And I feel like today's workforce is very fluid, and the working journey is very fluid, and that's only going to become more prevalent. So that gives me kind of peace of mind that I know what I'm doing right now, I'm loving it, I'm enjoying the process. Can I see myself doing it in 20 years? I don't know, but I don't need to think about that because there's so many opportunities and so many like little, when we're thinking of it like life segments, right? You've got so many life segments left to enjoy, left to dive into.
And that's something that's the same in business and work and in life.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, if you take that same principle of just kind of, understanding that life is so fluid, like the future is so fluid, you never know what can happen, and it kind of plays into what you're going to be doing as work. Like you say, now you might be doing what you're doing, you might be a mindset coach, but in 10 years, I don't know, I might be a parachute trainer.
He trains the parachutes to put themselves back in the bag.
I have like a classroom. But yeah, like it's so fluid. It's the same in just general life. Like you never have any idea what is going to happen, right? You don't know. No matter how much people try and predict, or they think they know, they don't. So you just gotta kind of just take it as it comes and be content with, like Jake said, be content with the fact that everything could fucking change in 20 years or in 10 minutes, and
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, just go with it.
It doesn't matter. Just roll with the flow.
Roll with the punch.
Yeah, get some right tight action. Yeah, and I feel like now we're at the point where we've definitely helped identify some of our psyche, like what in our past has determined the people we are today, and given you some like tangible actions to get there yourself. But there's one thing that I don't think we've covered that much, and something I want to dive into. For context, and for like a backstory to what I'm about to dive into, when I did drop out of university, I was faced with like life. It feels like I've broken out of education, now my life is in my own hands. That was great when the startup was doing well, when the startup was doing well, but then we started going...
He's drunk.
Yeah, we started going a little roller coaster. The product didn't end up working out, and I suddenly realized I had no idea what I wanted to do, and that led to like my mental health dropping so much, and I genuinely was so unsure of myself, unsure of my future. I didn't know what I was going to do. Started to get into a very negative headspace. But I think the biggest thing you should learn to do is be versatile and learn how to get out of situations like this. So what I've got here is the journal that got me out of that headspace. I ran what's called Project 50. I realized I was very, very down. If I continued in this headspace, it wouldn't go well. I wanted a catalyst, I wanted a change. So I sat down, and I'll read you the first page. This is what I wrote down in that state. It's currently 11:22 p.m, Saturday, 1st of October, and I'm worried I am falling out of love with myself and life itself. If I found myself in a very depressive mindset, and I will fight to get out. For so long, I've defined myself by my successes and my trajectories. Now all of that feels gone. I don't have a clear trajectory, my academic success doesn't feel relevant to my future, and I don't feel my channel right now fits into my life. And the time invested in that channel could be best spent elsewhere. I'm starting Project 50 to snap back into reality, figure out my why, start making progress rather than lying in bed depressed, and inevitably fall back in love with myself and my trajectory. I need to re-establish my work ethic and prove to myself I am deserving of a good life in my own respect. Since I've had success at a young age, my work ethic has slipped. Let's get that back. And then I set in place 8 things I wanted to achieve. I wanted to make $1,000 revenue dropshipping within that 50 days. Fair to say we smashed it. Ended up hitting 17K revenue within that month. I wanted to hit 83 kilograms muscle or like weight. That was more like a workout goal. I'd let everything slip, so I was really trying to build up all of my verticals, so the financial, the physical, and all of that. I wanted to finish 2 books, Atomic Habits and actually Matt's book.
Really?
Yeah, so I ended up finishing that. Set up a financial plan for myself and like apply to all of these different places. The key takeaway is everyone experiences really, really low points where they have no idea what they want to do. At that point, I was going to bed at like 11 p.m. and I was waking up at 3 p.m. because I was just too depressed to get up and work. I didn't want to do anything. And knowing how to get out of those stages is so important. What I find to be a really good mental model is look at yourself now and identify the person you want to be. So I made 2 identity shifts that I would check in with every single day and iterate from there. The identity shifts I made was, I am the type of person who relentlessly works on my future and actively seeks opportunities, and I am the type of person who highly values the power of relationships and knows that a fulfilling life stems from relationships and shared experiences. At the end of every day, I would check in to see if I was identifying with that, and if I wasn't, why not? What was I doing? What could I be doing differently to help align with those principles? And as long as I was aligning with that identity and those principles, I knew that my life would come. And like I would realize what I want to do, my trajectory would increase. And that's how I kind of got out of that depressive state. Joe, I'd love to know if you've had any similar experiences, any similar states, and how you got out of it.
Yeah, so this is actually something that I do with my clients, right? And the identity shift is what I mean. So yeah, the identity shift is something that I actually do with my clients. It's essentially, I help them figure out where they are now in excruciating detail, like extreme detail, as I'm sure Jake probably did, like really real self-reflection, like what they're doing, what habits what their habits are, why they're thinking the way they're thinking, how they're thinking the way they're thinking, what their beliefs are, every single thing, and just kind of get an image of who they are, which is their identity in the present moment. And then create a vision for the identity that they want to become, the person they want to become. And this is like where I say excruciating detail is actually insane. It's like 3, 4, 5 pages of writing of exactly who that person is. Not only exactly who that person is, but just like a day in their life. So for example, like what they'd wake up thinking, what they'd wake up eating, who they'd wake up next to if they're lucky, and what car they'd be driving, you know, all of this shit that's like really real detail. So they can picture it, and it's similar, very similar to what Jake did. And this is something that I've applied in my own life many times. When you got your journal out, I was like, oh, I wish I brought my journal.
Yeah.
Because I had it on the desk back at the other villa, and I was going to bring it. But yeah, journaling got me there in a similar capacity. The time frame, there's been many times. There's not like a single time where, like for example, I'd need my journal to actually tell me the exact date and everything. But there's been many times where I've hit those downfalls. I've kind of fallen out of love with life and myself, as Jake put it, as my good friend so eloquently put it. And I've needed to create that identity shift and figure out where I am and what I'm doing that I'm blinded by that is going to hold me back, and figure out how to kind of jump over that hurdle and become the person that I want to be. And it's something that I do all the time. I'm in the process right now. Coming here. Yeah. I'm making an identity shift. I'm changing who I am. I'm changing the person that I want to be, as I'm sure Jake is as well, as I'm sure the majority of the people in this villa are. And it's something that you can do as well. I mean, you don't need a mindset coach, and it's obviously great to have. But it's to put it very simply, it's figuring out who you are, figuring out who you want to become.
Yeah, very, very valid points. And I think if there's anything to take away from this podcast and every piece of value that we put in this, if there's one thing you should do, regardless of where you are in your teenage years, I think it should be to define the person you want to be, like the person you want to resonate with. Really, in excruciating detail, write down what is that character, like what are the traits you want to have, or say like the person you admire the most. Create this fictional character that has everything you see in a good person, that has the life you want to live. Define that person and then come up with like mental models, like for example my identity, that you can continuously check in with and align with. Because if you do that, you trust the process, you abide by those principles and abide by that identity, your life will take course regardless of like anything else, any external factors. Your life will fall into place. And I feel like recently we've been able to do that, and we've experienced such success with that, and it's led us here today to where we are now.
To literally sitting here.
So sitting right here. In fact, like I've now even managed to fly my family out to Portugal for 3 days for surf camp. I would never have thought by going to university or doing whatever it may be, I would be able to do that at the age of 19. It's insanity, and I'm so grateful that I trusted the process and abided by that identity that I defined myself, or what I wanted to become.
That fucking amazing. It's amazing, and it just that him saying that, like the gratitude, it made me realise like us being here in this villa, right? So like, if I
open the doors,
show it. But if I, in a similar way, if I had given in almost to that sort of external pressure of society. This is just for me personally, so if you take from this what you will, but if I'd given into that external pressure from society to conform, essentially, to just take the safe route, do the easy stuff necessarily, but if I'd given into that, I wouldn't be here in this incredible, the nicest villa I've ever been in my entire life, with people that I love, just
straight
chilling
up,
out and just having fun. Like, actually, him saying it just then made me just look around. You can probably see it on the podcast. I was just like looking around, thinking, "Wow, this is nuts." And it's a similar thing. We are actually here, like now, in this
crazy villa in the middle of Bali.
It is actually insane. Like it is really cool.
There's a tour coming, but it's incredible. And yeah, so like we've now got to this point with like internal success, and this has come about from literally one spontaneous conversation. I can't remember when it was, but we just said, let's go to Bali. On that moment, I hadn't actually ever met Joe in real life when we decided we wanted to go to Bali. Everyone else here I'd only met once or twice, or not at all.
Yeah, same.
And we basically just, because we all resonated with the same values, we trusted that we'd get on, we trusted that it would be a good time, and we just said, fuck it, let's go to Bali. And spontaneous like actions like that have so much power. If we hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be consolidating my paradigm in the fact that I believe I could achieve a life like this. I'd probably still be a little bit depressed in Bali.
Same.
Yeah, I think it's going to be we're only a weekend, it's going to be a transformative holiday for everyone. And I'm so grateful that,
that we're here and we can like do this, right? We can just like speak to you guys and hopefully you can get something from it and apply it to your own life. That's for me. I think it's the same thing with Jake, but like if you can just take anything from this and apply it to your life and it helps you in any sort of way, I don't care. I'm happy.
Yeah, ecstatic.
Literally, that's what I want.
It's been a great podcast. There's going to be many more to come, I'm sure. We'd love to know like sort of the topics you guys want to see. We want to us to dive into and unpack further. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. Apparently I need to go back and search how to type conversation. How to type conversation, how to have a conversation. And there's going to be a lot of stuff.
On the same for me, I was out last night. I didn't go to sleep until 6. And I've probably had about 4 hours sleep, and it's now the evening here. So I was a little bit out of it, but we got it done, right? We got it done. His speech was fucked and my brain was fucked. We still managed to get it done.
Alright, cool. We're going to go have a sick time in the villa now.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys later. Appreciate it. Let's go.